Hello everyone and welcome to today's instructional video. Today I'm going to be talking about Game 4 in my recently concluded OTB match versus 19-time state champion and one of the highest rated players in the history of Idaho chess, Larry Parsons. So quick little recap so far to this point. Larry won Game 1 after I made a blunder in a position I really should not have with the black pieces. I came back in Game 2, and while I developed really good winning chances and should have capitalized, I was only able to draw Game 2. Game 3, I was able to break through with the black pieces and win the game. So, to this point, the match score is 1.5, 1.5, first to 5. Just a little reminder, we're playing like game 95 for 30 moves with the 30-second sudden death, or 30-minute sudden death. So, without further ado, let's get into game 4. I had the white pieces, and I was ready to try to repeat my Smith-Morra, and I was anxious to see how he would try to improve from game 2. Because even though he was able to draw that game with the black pieces, that was a game I should have won. I built up a big advantage and then I messed it up. So e4, c5, d4, cd4, c3. We have the Smith-Morra gambit. Again, we are giving up a pawn for a lead in development. This is an opening I found to be deceptively strong the more I dive into it. And something I've been enjoying playing lately. And now we're going to get one of the strongest continuations Black can play. Because instead of taking on c3 right away, which would be pretty standard, Black plays knight f6. Right away, Black is just threatening to take our pawn on e4 in exchange for us taking his d4 pawn. And you might be saying to yourself, can White not just push and kick this knight away? And that is the best move, pawn e5. And then the knight goes to d5. And here there's a couple of different routes you can go. Queen d4 is a line in the Smith-Morra, just hitting the knight right away. Knight f3 is a thing. And then bishop c4 is one of the most common moves. Bishop c4 is what I chose. And now Black's knight is under attack, and he has to decide, should I protect it or should I move it? The most common thing is to move it to b6. Hit our bishop, and then we want to maintain this pressure on the light square diagonal, so we drop it back to b3. Again, we're not doing anything, we're just leaving this d pawn here saying, if you want to take on c3, we're fine with that. I'm just going to continue developing. d6 was played, so right away striking at my center. Not grabbing material, just aiming for equality. And I played knight f3. The idea is if he takes, which he did, knight e5 comes with tempo on this pawn on f7. So now my bishop and my knight are ganging up on f7. Black does not have very many options at this point. And a quick way to lose the game, guys, would be the move d takes c3, losing the game on the spot to bishop f7. The king cannot take the bishop, and he cannot run to the d file because my queen is occupying it. So bishop takes f7 has got to be dealt with. And there's relatively few ways to do this. Black plays pawn e6. The best move, blocking my diagonal. And I opted for castle king side. So I'm just continuing to develop. I'm not going to grab this pawn on d4 until I see a situation where it benefits me. And I'm just continuing to try to leave it out there for bait for my opponent. Black played knight c6. I did not see any better move here. I just simply took the knight on c6. I thought I may as well kind of damage these queenside pawns. And maybe that's something I can look to target later in the game. Queen f3. I wasn't sure how good a move this was. Obviously, I've castled. I brought out my bishop. And queen f3 just kind of tries to tickle at this undefended c6 pawn. The computer doesn't actually think it's that bad a move, but it does prefer CD4 at this point. So finally just saying, okay, I'm going to take the pawn back on D4. And we're going to have equal material. Black needs to do something about this pawn. It definitely felt natural to me to play bishop B7. But then at some point, if you're going to push C5, you're going to need to defend this bishop on B7 from being taken by my white queen. So he played queen C7 first. And now I played CD4. So the material balance is restored. Well, what we can see going on here is black is a move from castling. He needs to move his bishop and then castle. And I'm already castled away safely in the corner. My queen is out. My bishop's out. I just need to focus on getting these queenside pieces out as soon as possible. Bishop D6 came. And here I really had a moment of debate with myself. As you guys can see, he is targeting my H2 pawn twice. One of the things that can happen is sometimes when you're playing openings that are gambit openings where you're giving away material, is you're always kind of thinking along the lines of giving up more material. In this game, black has given me back my pawn, so I'm actually not losing materially in this position. But I was looking for a way to maybe let him take this, even with check. So that I could have a bigger lead in development. And that's why I opted to play knight c3. Just saying, if you want to take on h2, which he didn't do this turn, he castled first. I'm going to go knight e4. And the computer doesn't like this move. But it also doesn't say it's a losing move. And it doesn't say it's a blunder. It just says it's an inaccuracy, which is quite interesting. Black takes on h2 with check. We have to move our king. And now, guys, something to be aware of that can pop up in a lot of your games is when this bishop is on h2 or a2 or a7 or h7, and you're backing it up with your queen or something, there are possibilities that the move pawn to g3 will trap this bishop. And then you'll end up just having to give up a bishop for a pawn. And then your opponent will be winning or you'll be winning, depending on who pulled off the trap. So that's why black drops back right away. And here I thought, don't I have just really good development after knight d6, queen d6, and bishop f4? Yes, I'm giving up 2 pawns, but both my bishops are out, my queen is out, and my rook can come to the d file. Seemed really interesting to me, so I decided to give it a go. After queen d4, the computer likes black, but strangely enough, not by a ton. Not by a ton. It doesn't even say black is winning at this point. So white's lead in development still has something is gonna say something about the result of this game. I was curious just now because computer suggested another move which I haven't seen in going through this game itself. Okay, it wanted bishop h6. Fascinating. It says bishop h6 is straight zeros. Wow. Let's see what this is about. Okay, let's look at the most natural move. Gh6. There's knight f6. Okay, there's relatively few options. King g8 or king g7. Let's look at king at h8. There is queen e4, threatening mate on h7. Wow. And the only way to deal with this is to move the king. And then we check. The king goes back to h8. And we go back to knight f6 and we repeat. Wow, that's fascinating. Obviously I didn't see that in the game, but that would have been a fascinating way to draw the game. So he can't take on h6, and he has to play like, well, unless he wants to draw. Wow, that's really interesting. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I did not see that. Okay, but the game continued along these lines. Again, Black is slightly better, but he's 2 pawns ahead. So to only be slightly better is quite interesting. Queen g3. The idea, guys, is that we're targeting the g7 square and we want to play bishop e5. Threatening mate, blocking off his queen from defending the g7 square. So queen g3 is very, very strong. And f5. And you might be thinking here, can't we just play bishop e5? How does black save his queen and defend g7? f5 gives him the option to use the g4 square. And interestingly enough, I think we can trade queens here if we want to. Queen g4, fg4. And even though we're down 2 pawns and we traded off our queens, which is not something we usually do, in a scenario where we're down 2 pawns and attacking, after rook a to c1, the position is almost equal. It still says white has enough for his material. So bishop e5 is probably going to lead to a queen exchange, so that's why I didn't play bishop. I brought the rook over to d1. Now he needs to keep his queen defending his kingside. Queen f6. And I played bishop d6. And now it's straight zeros across the board. White has enough initiative. His bishop on b3 is putting pressure. His bishop on d6 is inflicting pressure. The rook is on an open file. This rook can come here. My queen is coming here. And in comparison, black has a rook on a8, a bishop on c8 right now that are not really involved in the game. The knight b6, he is involved in the game, and he might be useful playing knight d5 at some point. But white has a very, very active position, even though he's down 2 pawns. And black has to react to the threats still. So he saves his rook. And I played bishop e5. And here there's 3 options. He can play queen h6, check, queen g6, or queen f7. Or queen f8. Queen f8 is the worst of the options. He needs to stay guarding the g7 pawn. Queen g6. And here again, I can take, and I have enough compensation. In fact, the computer says I'm even a slightly bit better. Which is just crazy, down 2 pawns. And I almost did take the queen here. But I opted to keep it on the board since I am attacking. Bishop a6, so now he is finally creating a threat. He's hitting our rook. Rook e1, and rook d8. This is a mistake because it allows me to win back one of my pawns. Queen c6, and this was not the correct way to do it. I should have played rook d8, and queen c6. And then I've regained my pawn, and I'm targeting the e6 square. And this position could fall apart really, really quickly for black. It's interesting that queen c6 is not good. I wonder because he has rook c8. No, rook c7 is a mistake. Rook c8 is a mistake, it says. Interesting. It says it's a blunder, but it doesn't lose any material, so I'm not sure what it's thinking. Rook c8, queen d6. I was trying to keep my my queen active. She's putting pressure right here. All right, and now black cheekily retreats backwards. And something to always ask yourself in your games, no matter what your level is, what is my opponent threatening? So often, especially at a lower level, you can get into this mindset of you're so focused on your plan, you don't pay attention to what your opponent's doing. My opponent is trying to checkmate me on g2. My options are relatively limited here. f3, blocking the diagonal. Bishop d5. And from this point on, for the next several moves, black kind of takes control over this game. It's been tight. It's been anybody's game. I've down material, but I've had enough compensation. At this point, black is actually winning here for several moves. Let's see if he can capitalize on it. So he's winning at this point. Knight d5, a great move, blocking my queen off. I tried to stay active. That's important, guys. When you're down material, when you're up material, when you're losing, it's important to try to stay active. And again, black hits me with the checkmate threat on g2. So obviously we have to play rook g1, to which there's queen h6, and then my bishop has to come back. Yeah, this is just, it's not pleasant, guys. It's not pleasant, and it is objectively, it is losing for me at this point. I'm down a pawn, but more importantly, I'm losing a little bit of that compensation I had. My pieces were so good. Now they're not so good. Knight f4, very, very good move. Bringing another piece closer to my king. Queen e3 would have been just slightly stronger. But knight f4 is still good. I tried to create threats. I'm hideous rook. He put it on c8. And I played queen e7. So here, guys, I'm just doing my best to try to come up with little threats to try to give him opportunities to go astray. The threat, guys, is rook d8, queen d8. And then just a bunch of checks. So that's what I'm thinking. Knight d5, a really good move, blocking my rook off. I grab the pawn, and he plays g5. So he's not even worried about taking on b2. B2 would have been very natural. The idea at some point maybe would be to double the rooks. Queen a5 and g4. Obviously, we cannot allow g3. That would win our bishop and actually gets checkmated. So takes. Again, he's threatening g3, so we go rook d3. So on g3, we have rook g3 check. And rook c1. And slowly but surely over the last several moves, black's advantage has actually been slipping. Even though it does definitely look a little bit, still look dicey for me and my king. And queen e7 was actually my blunder that should have cost me the game. It's been in the +2 range for black until this move. Now it's 6 for black, which means he's completely and utterly dominating this game. But how did he continue? Knight f4 would have been the best move to try to bring a piece towards my king. But he played rook g1, which is also winning, but not the best move. Queen g1, and then rook c1. And he's pinning my queen to my king. But this is where the game goes back to zeros. Rook d1. I have to block that rook off. And rook c2. Just trying to keep active. If you guys notice, really the only thing black has going is his piece activity right now. His queen keeping my bishop locked down. His rook on the second rank. Just eyeballing all these. The possibility that the knight can come into f4. The issue, though, at this point is that the knight coming into f4 starts to open up some checks on the back rank. And black has to be careful about that. Queen d4. Activity. You guys might be thinking, can't he push his pawn to g3? Pawn g3 is going to lose a pawn to queen g4 check, king moves, and queen g3. And then we're just up a pawn and we are cruising again. So don't push that pawn to g3. But now black has to do something. He has to create a threat. That is a direct threat to take on g4. So he goes knight e3, so he's hitting my rook, and he's defending g4. And he's hitting g2. So, good stuff. But all this activity, my queen and my rook now have an opportunity to get involved and try to force at least a draw. Queen d8 check. King f7. And the move I would really like to play is rook f1, but he could just take. So I played rook d7, king g6, and the very, very accurate move, queen e8 here, to not let his king go to h5. At this point, guys, it looks like black is in a lot of trouble, but actually, in reality, white is only slightly better, and this should end in a draw. Curiously enough, I remember thinking that this has to be winning in the moment by force, but it's not. It's not. Rook f7, king e4. And now you want to make sure you're checking him on the right square. I played rook f4. Obviously, if he takes with the queen, we're going to take back with the bishop and should be able to capitalize on that position as white and win. But king d3, and this is still only slightly better for white, amazingly enough. Queen d7 check. King e2. And here I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, have I royally messed this up? He's threatening checkmate. And I don't really have a lot of... I don't have a lot of resources, and it kind of looks like I'm running out of checks, honestly. So I checked on b5. And he played king e1. And here I let my guard up for 1 second, which almost cost me, and I played queen e5. Which is zeros. After king e2, he has an opportunity to correct that he went to the wrong square last time. Queen b5, you cannot go king e1, guys. You cannot go king e1. You have to go to d2. And this is actually going to end in a draw. What's wrong with e2? What's wrong after queen b5 with going king e1? King e1 is a losing blunder, and I did spot the move queen d3, which instantly is going to wrap up this chess game. The knight is overworked defending this rook, defending this knight. And if black plays rook e2, it's about the only option he has. There is queen c3 check. Black has to play rook d2 or king d1. King d1 is going to be a checkmate. Rook d4. And then rook d2. And then queen d2. So that's a force mate. And on rook d2, there's just queen e3. And we're up a piece. And he's going to get mated. King d1. Rook f1. King c2. And guys, we don't even have to take this queen on h6. We can just slide the queen over to b3 and say, GG, let's start another. Anyway, that put the score at 2.5, 1.5 in my favor, guys. First to 5. First to 5 points. So the next game's going to be pivotal. If I can get a draw in the next game, I'm going to be within 2 wins of wrapping the match up. If I can win the next game, I'm going to need a draw and a win. But if I lose, he's going to tie the match again. Anyway, guys, I really, really appreciate all of you guys watching these videos. Hopefully, you're learning something from them. If that is the case, I really would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button. I'm really doing my best to try to post these educational videos for you every day. And yeah, just let's talk in the chat. If you have any questions about the game, comments, constructive criticism, I would love to hear it. Anyway, hope you guys appreciate this. I will be dropping the video for the next game tomorrow. So be looking out for that, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for everything, guys.